I didn't know whose apartment I was in, and that didn't used to bother me. It was New Year's Eve, somewhere between my third beer and that weird pink punch that tasted like sunscreen and nostalgia. I had followed my friend Cam into the party like I usually did. Him always the one with the social battery, me just the plus one who made polite conversation and scoped out the dogs in the backyard. Except this time, Cam had vanished around 11, off to some other party with a guy he met on Grindr. I didn't blame him. That's kind of what New Year's is for, right? Spontaneity, poor choices, good stories. So that left me, standing in a stranger's kitchen, holding a solo cup that wasn't mine, pretending I didn't care that I was basically alone at midnight. The countdown happened in the living room. I could hear it echoing, 10, 9, 8, over the chatter and cheap Bluetooth speakers. I didn't go in there. I stayed where I was, leaning against the counter like some tragic background character. I didn't know him yet. Not until he came in at 12:01. Already holding a half-empty bottle of champagne, cheeks flushed and tie loosened, like he'd hosted every party that had ever existed. "Hey," he said, stopping in the doorway. "Did you miss it?" I looked up. "What?" "Midnight," he said, smiling like it wasn't obvious. "You're standing in here like it's still 11:30. I blinked. "Yeah, I guess I missed it." "Want a do-over?" he asked, raising the bottle. "We can count from 5. "Very exclusive. VIP event." I laughed. Unexpected and real. "Sure." "Okay. 5, 4, 3. He stepped closer. 2, 1. I thought he'd clink my cup or maybe offer a dramatic toast. Instead, he just smiled again and said, "Happy New Year," like it meant something. And I said it back. His name was Levi. And he was, in fact, the host, or at least the leaseholder of the loft we were currently destroying with confetti and spiked punch. I told him I'd ended up here by accident. He told me he hoped I'd stay on purpose. "You look like someone who's good at pretending they want to leave," he said at one point, handing me a beer from the fridge without asking if I wanted one. "And you look like someone who flirts with every last guest." I shot back. He grinned. "Only the ones hiding in the kitchen." We stayed there a while, talking, half laughing, letting the party wind down around us. One by one, people filtered out. Some offered tired goodbyes. Others just disappeared. The music went from chaotic to chill to silence, until eventually it was just us. Me, Levi, and the last lukewarm drink on the counter. "You ever stay this late at your own party?" I asked, swirling the beer in my hand. "I always stay late," he said, "but no one's usually here to notice." That line could have been corny, could have been rehearsed, but it didn't feel that way. He leaned against the island, arms crossed now, eyes on mine. Not in that overpowering pickup line kind of way, just steady, curious. "So what now?" I asked, voice lower. Levi glanced around at the empty loft, the floor littered with party hats and plastic cups. "You hungry?" he asked. "I've got leftover garlic knots and absolutely no shame about microwaving them at 2 a.m. I didn't even hesitate. Lead the way. Levi's kitchen was somehow the cleanest part of the apartment. Everything else, coffee table, couch, floor, was a graveyard of red cups and party glitter. But the kitchen? Spotless. Like he had put effort into keeping one part of the night sane. Or maybe it was just the part he cared about most. "You actually made these?" I asked, watching him dig into the fridge for a Tupperware of garlic knots that looked suspiciously perfect. "I bake when I'm anxious," he said, holding up the container like it was a trophy. "Don't be fooled. These are what existential dread tastes like." I grinned. "Smells like butter and regret." "Exactly." He popped them into the microwave, and for a second, the silence stretched between us again. Not awkward, not heavy, just quiet. Which felt rare in a space that had been filled with people screaming Drake lyrics 20 minutes ago. He leaned back against the counter again while we waited, arms folded, eyes scanning me like he was trying to place me in a memory he hadn't lived. "So," he finally said, "you're Cam's friend?" "Yeah," I nodded. "Roommates. For now, anyway. He kind of migrates when he starts seeing someone." Levi laughed, nodding knowingly. "So you got abandoned?" "More like gently ditched." "Honestly, I kind of expected it." He tilted his head. "And you stayed anyway?" I shrugged. There was free alcohol and soft lighting. I'm not a masochist, just mildly pathetic. Not pathetic, he said. Just brave. Brave? He nodded. Sticking around when you don't have to? That's something. I didn't know what to say to that. It felt too real, too earnest for a night like this. I looked away first, focusing instead on the microwave, which was currently steaming up like it was cooking more than just carbs and anxiety. Besides, he added, softer now, you being here made it a better night. The microwave beeped. I didn't move. Neither did he. There was a beat where something shifted. Something small but unmistakable. The kind of moment that sits between platonic and something else and dares you to break the silence first. I reached for the microwave. He stepped aside, letting me pull the garlic knots out, the heat blooming against my fingers through the paper towel he'd wrapped around the plate. Careful, he murmured just behind me now. Too close. My hand brushed his when I set the plate down. Neither of us pulled away. We ate in the living room, if you could call it that. The couch was half buried in confetti and jackets, so we sat on the floor, legs stretched out, sharing the plate between us like two kids at a sleepover. You always throw parties like this? I asked, licking garlic butter off my thumb. Not really, he said. Just New Year's. I like the idea of endings and beginnings in the same breath. That's poetic, he smirked. I took one semester of creative writing, failed it. But I remember the vibe. I laughed. You strike me as someone who's good at hosting. I like watching people feel like they belong, he said after a moment. Even if it's just for a night. You know, I think everyone deserves one night where they don't feel like the weird one. That hit harder than I expected. I looked at him again, really looked. His hair was starting to fall out of its carefully styled shape, his shirt was wrinkled at the collar, and there was a faint smudge of glitter on his temple he hadn't noticed. And still, somehow, he looked more put together than I ever felt. You're good at that, I said quietly. Making people feel like they belong. He glanced at me, our eyes held. This time, I didn't look away. Do you want to stay? He asked later. As we were tossing empty cups into a trash bag, both of us yawning and moving slower now, I turned to him. What? He straightened up. You're welcome to crash here. The couch is technically a pull-out. Or you can have my bed. I'll take the couch. You don't have to do that. I want to. He said it so simply, so easily that I couldn't argue, and, truthfully, part of me didn't want to leave. The idea of stepping back out into the cold night, into the hollow quiet of my apartment, while Cam giggled into his phone with some guy across the city, it felt suddenly unbearable. Okay, I said, I'll stay. Levi's face lit up in that unguarded, boyish way again. Like I'd just said yes to something bigger than a place to sleep. Cool, he said, trying to sound casual. I'll grab you a blanket. The guest blanket smelled like fabric softener and cedarwood. I'd barely set it over my lap when Levi came back into the living room, this time without the party host energy. He looked tired now, in a good way, relaxed. His shirt was off, swapped for a gray hoodie, and his curls were messier, like he'd finally let himself deflate a little. Bed's all yours, he said, nudging his chin toward the hallway behind him. Don't worry, I washed the sheets yesterday. Wasn't sure if anyone would end up crashing. You planned for a stranger to sleep in your bed? I planned for someone to need comfort, he said, sitting back down on the arm of the couch. Stranger or not. That sentence shouldn't have made my chest feel tight. But it did. I shifted under the blanket, feeling a little stupid for suddenly being shy. You sure you're okay with the couch? He shrugged. It's not bad. Plus, I've had worse. You ever try sleeping in a Subaru during a camping trip where it rains the whole time and your ex keeps quoting Into the Wild like it's scripture? I laughed. No, but now I feel like I've missed a crucial life experience. You didn't, he cried, because his hummus got wet. Tragic. Levi grinned, but it faded quickly into something quieter. Softer. He looked at me again, and there was a different weight in his stare this time. Can I ask you something, he said. Sure. Did you come tonight hoping something would happen? The question caught me off guard. I blinked. What do you mean? He didn't look away. I mean this. Us. Sitting here, eating garlic knots at 3 a.m., talking like we've known each other longer than 3 hours. I swallowed. No, I said. I didn't come for this. I meant it. I hadn't planned on any of this. But as I looked at him, his knees pulled up, hoodie sleeves bunched at his elbows, mouth curved just slightly at the corner like he was trying not to hope too hard, I found myself saying more. But I'm glad it happened. Levi's eyes dropped to my hands where they fidgeted under the blanket. Then they came back to my face. Me too, he said. I didn't go to the bedroom. Not that night. Instead, I ended up next to him on the couch, legs stretched out, shoulders close, the TV playing muted nature documentaries we weren't really watching. He offered me half the blanket. I said no at first. Then the room got colder, and I didn't argue when he draped it over both our laps. Time blurred. Somewhere around the third video of baby penguins learning to swim, he leaned a little closer. I don't do this often, he said. Stay up until sunrise with strangers? He smiled. No, let people in. I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure how to. But I nodded, and that seemed to be enough for him. When his head eventually dropped to my shoulder, I didn't move. When I let mine rest lightly against his a minute later, he exhaled, like he'd been waiting for that exact thing to happen. We didn't talk after that. Not until morning. I woke up first. The sunlight was just starting to filter through the windows, casting the room in that pale, cold kind of glow you only see on January 1st. Everything was quiet, like the whole city was still asleep, licking its wounds from the night before. Levi was still next to me, curled up, blanket pulled to his chin, hair flopping across his forehead. One of his hands was resting loosely between us, fingers curled slightly, like he'd reached out in the middle of the night but changed his mind. I sat there for a long minute, just watching him breathe, and I realized I didn't want to leave. He stirred eventually, eyes blinking open like someone waking up from a really good dream and trying not to lose the ending. Hey, he said, voice scratchy. Hey, I whispered. He looked around, slightly dazed. Did we fall asleep here? Yeah. Guess we're cliché now. He smiled, then stretched with a soft groan, blanket slipping a little off his shoulder. I hesitated, then said it, Do you want to get breakfast? His eyes met mine. Only if we make it a tradition, he said. I raised an eyebrow. A tradition? He nodded, sitting up straighter now. Leftover garlic knots, couch sleepovers. Breakfast on New Year's Day. I paused, then offered a slow smile. Okay, I said. It's a promise. We didn't leave the apartment until noon. The streets were empty in that oddly cinematic way, like the whole city was nursing a collective hangover, wrapped in puffer jackets and regrets. Even the corner deli was slow, the bell over the door practically whispering when we walked in. Levi had insisted on buying. I'm still the host, he said with a lazy grin, eyes scanning the menu like he hadn't ordered the same bacon, egg, and cheese since high school. I tried to protest, but he was already tapping his card. We sat on the curb outside, our sandwiches steaming in the cold, fingers stiff but mouths full. You eat like this every year? I asked, trying not to drip hot sauce on my sleeve. Not always this classy, he said between bites. Last year I had half a Pop-Tart and a bottle of Pedialyte. Romantic? He smirked. You wouldn't believe how hard it is to find a strawberry Pop-Tart at 10 a.m. in January. I laughed, the kind of laugh that felt loose, unguarded. It surprised me a little how easy this all was. There was no morning after awkwardness, no second guessing. Just him, still in his hoodie, eyes crinkled against the pale winter sun, looking at me like we were both in on some unspoken joke. After a while, we walked. No destination. No plan. Just wandering the quiet blocks like we had nowhere better to be. At one point, I asked him why he threw the party. He didn't answer right away. We were passing a line of parked cars, all covered in that thin gray layer of winter grime. Levi paused, drew a smiley face on a windshield with his finger, then wiped it away with his sleeve. I think I just wanted to feel important, he said finally. Even if it's just for one night, even if it's just because I have the biggest apartment and the best speakers. I didn't say anything, just listened. I don't think I've ever been someone's first choice, he added, quieter now. I'm always the plan B, the backup, the guy you text when your date cancels. I stopped walking. He didn't notice at first. Just kept going a few more steps before realizing I wasn't beside him. When he turned back, I said, I didn't come to your party because Cam bailed. I came because I wanted to stop feeling like a placeholder in my own life. Levi's eyes softened. He didn't try to respond right away. Just walked back to me, stood there, shoulder to shoulder in the January cold. Maybe we're both a little tired of being Plan B, he said, and then he reached for my hand. It was simple. No fanfare, no dramatic music, just his fingers sliding into mine like they belonged there. I didn't let go. Later, back at his place, we didn't talk much. We sat on the floor again, same spot as last night, sharing the last garlic knot like it was some sacred ritual. The TV was off this time. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. Levi was staring out the window when he said it. I don't want this to be a one-night thing. I turned to look at him. He was still watching the street. The snowfall starting again, tiny flakes drifting down like confetti that had missed the party. I mean, he went on, I know it kind of started that way, but I don't want this to end with today. I didn't answer right away, not because I was unsure, but because I was trying to make the moment last. Eventually I said, then let's not let it. He looked over, met my eyes, and smiled. New year? New us? I laughed. That's corny as hell. Okay, fine. New year? Same us. But now with better leftovers and holding hands. Deal. We didn't see each other for 3 days. It wasn't weird. Not really. Life resumed. Work meetings, laundry, text from Cam asking if I'd survived Levi's rager. I told him I had. I didn't tell him I'd woken up next to the host with a blanket over both our legs and a promise hanging in the air like morning breath. Levi texted first. You still craving garlic knots, or have you transcended carbs completely? I transcended. I'm now purely made of garlic. He sent back a laughing emoji, followed by, come over Friday. I'll make something less traumatic. I stared at my phone for a good 10 minutes before typing back. Only if you let me bring dessert. Only if it's not raisins pretending to be chocolate chips. No promises. His apartment felt different when I walked in again. Not because it had changed. If anything, it looked better. Cleaned up. No more confetti or sticky floors. The couch had actual pillows again. But the vibe was quieter now. Less performance. More real. Hey, he said, voice easy, smile small. Hey, I replied. We just stood there a second. Not in a weird way, just like we were taking inventory. Are you still you? Am I still me? Did that thing that happened actually happen? Or was it just a well-lit midnight fantasy? Then he stepped forward and hugged me. No hesitation. No awkward patting. Just full arms around my back, chin resting against my shoulder, like it wasn't the first time or the last. You brought dessert? He asked, into my hair. Yeah, I said, muffled. I hope you like suspicious grocery store tiramisu? He pulled back, grinning. I love suspicious desserts. They have character. Dinner was pasta. Simple, warm, exactly what I didn't know I needed. We sat at the counter again. Same stools, same faint music in the background. Levi poured wine. I made fun of his apron. He pretended to be offended but kept wearing it the whole time. You're different, he said at one point, over his second glass. I looked up. What do you mean? Just... He tilted his head. You seem lighter, like the version of you I met on New Year's had something sitting on his chest. And now, it's not. I thought about that. I think I just stopped waiting for things to happen to me, I said. That night, it made me realize I'm allowed to want something. Or someone. And I don't have to pretend I don't. Levi was quiet for a beat. Then he reached across the counter and took my hand. Good, he said, because I want to be wanted. Later, we moved to the couch. This time, there was no crowd, no countdown, no excuse. We sat close, shoulders touching, his hand never really letting go of mine. And eventually, somewhere between silence and some Netflix background noise, I leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't urgent. It just happened. Like it was always supposed to. When I pulled back, he kept his eyes closed for half a second longer. Then he opened them and smiled that smile I was already starting to crave. Worth the wait? He asked. I nodded. Every second. He brushed his thumb across my wrist. This doesn't feel like a hookup. It's not. You sure? I leaned back in, kissing the corner of his mouth this time. Positive. Afterward, we stayed there, in the quiet, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy shapes on my back. We didn't talk about labels, or plans, or what it all meant. We just were. Two people who found something in a leftover drink and a missed midnight kiss. Two people who didn't want it to end with the hangover. And somewhere in that sleepy stillness, he whispered it, "I'm really glad you stayed." I squeezed his hand and whispered back, "So am I." We started texting every day after that, not in that casual, surface-level way. These were full conversations, thought-out replies, check-ins that actually felt like someone was listening. He sent me a photo of his coffee every morning. I sent back voice memos when I walked to work, rambling about nothing just so he could hear my voice. Cam noticed. Of course he did. "You've been smiling at your phone like a teenager with a crush," he said, one night as we sat side by side on the couch. "Is Levi officially your boyfriend now, or are we still pretending it's just a very intense garlic knot friendship?" I rolled my eyes. "We haven't really talked about it like that." Cam smirked. "So he's not your boyfriend, but he is the last person you think about before bed and the first one you text when your iced coffee tastes weird." "Shut up." "Just saying," he said. "You're different lately. It's good." I didn't reply right away. Because he was right. I was different. I felt more like myself than I had in months. And a lot of that had to do with Levi. The first time he stayed over at my place, it was snowing. Not a dramatic blizzard. Just that soft kind of snowfall that makes the city feel muffled, like someone hit mute on the chaos. We'd gone out for dinner, wandered into a bookstore afterward, then walked the 5 blocks back to my apartment with our hands tucked into each other's pockets. When we stepped inside, he stood in the doorway like he was seeing me for the first time in a new context. "Your place smells like cedar and ambition," he said, grinning as he kicked off his boots. "It's the air freshener I panic bought last week," I replied, "and the unpaid bills." He wandered over to the windows, pulled back the curtain a little, and looked out at the snowfall. Then, softly, like he wasn't sure if it was okay to ask, "Can I stay?" I said yes without hesitation. He stayed. We watched a movie, curled up in my too small bed. He fell asleep with one hand resting on my hip, breathing slow and even. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was restless, but because I couldn't stop smiling. Waking up beside him felt like something I wanted to do every weekend for the rest of the year. 3 weeks into this thing, whatever we were, I found a note in my coat pocket. Not a text. Not a post-it. A literal handwritten note, folded up and slipped into the inside pocket like a secret. It said, "If I could bottle the way you looked at me the night we met, I'd carry it with me everywhere." No signature, no joke, just that one sentence, messy handwriting and all. I stared at it for 5 minutes, standing on the subway platform, heart thudding like I was 17 again. Later, I asked him about it. He didn't deny it. "I wrote it the day after the party," he said. "Didn't know when to give it to you, so I didn't." I folded the note back up and tucked it into my wallet, right next to my ID and an expired train pass. Things I don't leave the house without. The first time we argued, it was stupid. I was late to dinner. He hadn't texted back all day. I showed up already annoyed. He greeted me with sarcasm. I snapped. He snapped back. It wasn't yelling, wasn't toxic, just sharp edges colliding. But after, when I sat on his couch picking at my food, he reached over, touched my knee, and said quietly, "I don't want this to be a thing that breaks." "Me neither," I said, throat tight. We apologized, hugged too long, fell asleep that night closer than usual, like our bodies needed to remind each other we were okay. By the end of January, it was clear. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't a leftover New Year's spark clinging to our clothes like confetti. This was something we were both showing up for. Choosing. Protecting. It scared me sometimes. How fast I'd let him in. How much I liked having him there. But then he'd do something dumb, like send me a selfie of him holding a slice of pizza, and caption it, "Missing you, but not enough to share this." And I'd laugh so hard I'd forget to be scared. One night, curled up on my bed, his arm slung over my waist, he asked me the thing I didn't expect. "Do you want to do something for Valentine's?" I looked at him. "Isn't that kind of fast?" He shrugged, smile soft. It doesn't have to be fancy, I just want to spend it with you. I nodded, and just like that, I did. Valentine's Day landed on a Wednesday, which somehow made it feel less loaded. It wasn't a Friday night, candlelit dinner kind of Valentine's. It was a, we both had long days, and I'm showing up anyway kind of night. And Levi did show up. He knocked instead of using the key I'd finally given him the week before. When I opened the door, he had a takeout bag in one hand and a single red tulip in the other. A rose felt too dramatic, he said. This one's more you. Quiet, underrated, slightly droopy. I took the flower. Thanks, you're romantic and insulting. He stepped in, kissed me on the cheek, and handed me the food. I hope you're not sick of pad thai. I'd never disrespect pad thai like that. We ate on the floor, backs against the couch, legs stretched out side by side. The room was warm, soft music humming low in the background. It didn't feel like a holiday. It felt like a regular night. But better, because he was there. After dinner, we didn't do gifts. We just talked. Talked about our dumbest Valentine's experiences. About how he once got ghosted halfway through dessert. About how I once bought chocolates for a guy who told me afterward he was trying to keep things platonic. We talked about our worst dates. Our favorite childhood movies. What we wanted March to feel like. What scared us. And somewhere in there, I realized something. Levi wasn't just someone I liked. He was someone I trusted. That kind of trust that creeps up on you. Not loud, not obvious. It just happens. Because they listen when you talk. Because they remember how you take your coffee. Because they stay when you're too tired to be interesting. And because they still look at you like it's New Year's Eve, even when it's a random Wednesday in February and you're in mismatched socks. Later, with his head on my shoulder and my thumb tracing slow circles along his forearm, he whispered something. Would it be weird if I told you I love this? I tilted my head. This as in? He looked up, sleepy but serious. This, you, us, I blinked. My heart thudded once, then again louder. No, I said. It wouldn't be weird. He smiled, relieved, and leaned into me again. I'm not saying that yet, he added quickly. Not tonight. Just, I like where this is going. Same, I said. You can say it when it feels right. He closed his eyes again. I'll know when it is. So would I. A few weeks later, we hosted a small dinner at his place. Just a handful of friends, nothing big. Cam came, of course, and immediately pulled me aside in the kitchen. So you guys are like, official now? I raised an eyebrow. We've been official, Cam smirked. You're nesting. What? He nodded toward the living room, where Levi was tossing throw pillows onto the floor for extra seating. You bring him dessert. He remembers your parents, names. He watches documentaries with you on purpose. I rolled my eyes. You sound jealous, Cam grinned. I am, but I'm also really happy for you. That part surprised me. Cam wasn't usually the emotional one. But there was something sincere in his eyes, something that said he knew I'd needed this. I nodded, quietly. Thanks. The night ended with everyone full and a little tipsy, scattered across the floor laughing over some dumb game Levi had made up. There were empty wine bottles on the counter, takeout containers stacked like Jenga, and I was curled up against Levi's side, half asleep, feeling like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. It didn't feel like a grand moment, it felt like home. 2 months after the party, Levi found the bottle cap from that last drink we'd shared on New Year's Eve. He held it up, smiling. I kept this. You kept a bottle cap? It felt important. I looked at him. Do you keep something from every party? No, he said. Just the ones that change things, I smiled, stepping closer. Is this your way of being sentimental? Is it working? I kissed him softly. Yeah, I said. It is. Spring came early that year. The city thawed a little sooner than expected, and so did we. There was something about shedding coats and waking up to sunlight that made everything feel lighter, easier, like we had made it through some kind of quiet winter test without realizing it. Levi started spending more nights at my place than his. Not officially, not with a box of stuff or a toothbrush that never left. But he'd linger after dinner, and we'd fall asleep with limbs tangled under the covers like it was the most natural thing in the world. One night, brushing our teeth side by side, I said, "You know you basically live here now, right?" He paused mid-brush and looked at me in the mirror. "Should I start paying rent?" I grinned. "You can just keep doing dishes. It's the same thing." He spat, wiped his mouth, and leaned over to kiss my shoulder. Deal. April rolled in, and with it came his birthday. He didn't want anything big. "No parties," he said, holding up a finger. "I swear, if I see a single balloon, I'll run." So I planned something small. Just me, him, and a little picnic on the rooftop of his building. Blanket, snacks, a stupid chocolate cake I made from a box. He showed up with a six-pack and that soft look he got when he was pretending not to be emotional. "You remembered," he said, like it wasn't obvious. Of course I remembered. He sat beside me, legs stretched out, the skyline flickering behind him. I handed him a fork. We didn't bother with plates. Halfway through his second slice, he got quiet. I watched him for a moment, letting the silence settle. Then I asked, "What's going on in that head of yours?" He looked over, then said it, simple and clear, "I love you." The air went still. Not dramatic, just quiet, like the world was holding its breath for a second. My chest tightened, not with panic, with clarity. I set my fork down. "Yeah?" I said. He nodded. "I didn't mean to say it now, I feel it. And I didn't want to wait anymore." I leaned in and kissed him. Soft, warm, lingering. When I pulled back, I whispered, "I love you too." Because I did. I had for a while now. After that, nothing changed. And everything did. We were still us. Silly, affectionate, sometimes messy. But now there was something settled in the way we looked at each other. A knowing, a calm. One night in May, I found the note again, the one he left in my coat pocket all those months ago. "If I could bottle the way you looked at me the night we met, I'd carry it with me everywhere." I reread it twice. Then I turned it over and wrote, "You don't need to bottle it. I'm still looking at you the same way." I tucked it under his pillow. He found it the next night, and when he read it, he didn't say anything. He just reached for my hand in the dark and held it until we fell asleep. We still go back and talk about that night sometimes. The party. The kitchen. That missed midnight kiss. "You were hiding," he always teases. "You were performing, I always shoot back." But the truth is, something rare happened that night. Two people who weren't really looking for anything, who had no expectations beyond getting through the countdown, found something they didn't know they needed, a leftover drink, a quiet conversation, and a promise that, somehow, held up long after the party ended.